NASCAR has revealed the format of this year's All-Star race, and it also sounds like we might be getting a little bit of a sneak peek of the Gen 7 car in just a few short weeks, so we got a lot to talk about. How's it going, you guys? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Out of the Groove is sponsored by Ridge Wallet. What else can I really say about this thing? I've been using it for a few weeks now, and honestly, it is the best wallet I've ever owned personally. Very slim, very simple, very sleek, and also very durable. Full disclosure, I've dropped this thing on the ground at least a half a dozen times, and there's not a scratch on it. But yeah, the Ridge Wallet is available in titanium, aluminum, polycarbonate, carbon fiber, and is available in more than 12 different colors and styles. So check it out at ridgewallet.com. And also a reminder, they have a special deal for fans of this show. You can go to ridgewallet.com/groovy to get 10% off your order plus free shipping. Remember, that's ridgewallet.com with the promo code groovy. Go check them out and yeah, take advantage of this deal. Again, a huge thank you to Ridge Wallet for coming on to sponsor the show. Let's get to the news. We got some stuff to talk about today. We have two things to really talk about today, and both kind of have to do with each other. We're mainly going to be talking about the All-Star race. The Charlotte All-Star race still is just a few weeks away. It's going to happen later in May. But earlier this week, just a couple days ago, NASCAR revealed details as far as the format of this All-Star race, the rules package we're going to see. And so we got to talk about a little bit of that because they also gave us some information on the upcoming Gen 7 car. So we've got a lot to talk about. Let's get to it. Let's start by talking about the format for this year's Monster Energy All-Star race. It's pretty similar to what we saw last year. The race will consist of 4 stages, 30 laps, 20 laps, 20 laps, and then 15 laps. That's really the difference from last year. Last year was a 10-lap final stage. This year they've upped it to 15. Not sure why, but hey, it's an extra few laps of racing. Who might have complained? Also similar to last year, in those first 3 stages, green and yellow flag laps will count. However, in the final stage, those last 15 laps all have to be green. Cautions will not count towards those 15 laps. Overtime rules apply at the end of each stage. However, at the end of the final stage, NASCAR will run unlimited overtime attempts until they can decide a winner or get a winner, get to the white flag, I guess. So as far as format goes, not a whole lot different from last year, obviously adding that 5-lap extra stage at the end. The All-Star race, I will say, it feels like it's lost some of its luster the last few years, but it's still put on a pretty good show, especially last year with that special aero package with the restrictor plates. That was something we've never seen at an intermediate track. So the All-Star race still is capable of surprising us, qualifying for the All-Star race. I don't know what day, it's probably still Friday. I would assume, or maybe it's Saturday. I don't know what, but before that race weekend, look up when qualifying is because that's what you really don't want to miss. Each driver runs a couple laps, but then they also come on the pit road going full speed. There's a live pit stop. The qualifying is honestly one of the most interesting aspects of All-Star Weekend the last few years since they instituted this kind of fun format. As usual, the prize at the end of this year's All-Star race is $1 million. They're going to have the All-Star Open race. There's also the fan vote, which is going on now. You can go to NASCAR.com, I guess, and vote for your favorite driver who isn't already locked into the All-Star race. You can vote for them to make it in. And that's another thing I should mention. There are currently only 15 drivers eligible or locked into the All-Star race main event. Now remember, these 15 drivers are all full-time drivers, and they have to have either won a Cup Series championship or a Cup race the last 2 years or a past All-Star race. Drivers who are currently locked in: Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Eric Jones, Austin Dillon, Ryan Newman, Kevin Harvick, Eric Almirola, Clint Bowyer, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, and Joey Logano. The fact that only 15 drivers are locked in this year is less than we've had in years past. That means that open race that they run before the All-Star race on Saturday afternoon could be quite interesting. You got a lot of big names over there. Daniel Suarez is going to be trying to race his way in, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Kyle Larson. It's going to be a very interesting open race, and also the fan vote will come into play. The fact that Chase Elliott is already locked into the show means that somebody else is going to get that fan vote, and that might be interesting. Kyle Larson comes to mind, Bubba Wallace comes to mind, Daniel Suarez comes to mind, and maybe an underdog. Maybe you sneak in there and get an underdog like we've seen before. Yeah, I don't know. Fan vote will be interesting. The open race will be interesting. But there you have it. Those are the 15 drivers that are already qualified for the All-Star race. Less than in recent years. I mean, you think back to last year. Some of the drivers that were in the All-Star race last year aren't even eligible, aren't even racing this year, like Casey Kane or Matt Kenseth. Obviously, with some of the other veterans, Dale Jr., Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, a lot of past champions, past guys that would be eligible for the All-Star race aren't there anymore. And last year's race was dominated, or that last year's season was dominated by the big 3, means less people won. So I think that's why we see a smaller locked-in field than usual. But that being said, All-Star race was fun last year. Hopefully it's fun again this year. But there is going to be a change. Last year we saw restrictor plates. Let's go ahead and talk about the second part of today's show. This year's race, All-Star race, will not feature restrictor plates. They're not doing that. As unique and fun, I thought, the restrictor plates at Charlotte were last year for the All-Star race. NASCAR has opted not to go with that in 2019. Instead, we're going to be running a similar package to what we've run at all mile and a half so far this year. 550 horsepower, same big rear spoiler, aero ducts. However, there are a couple subtle changes to the car for this all-star race, and this is where I want to talk about the Generation 7, because these couple of technological changes are apparently being considered for the Gen 7 race car. So we're getting a glimpse into the potential future here in this all-star race. The first notable change is regarding that splitter that likes to be talked about a lot. For the all-star race, cars will have a single-piece carbon fiber splitter/pan.
We'll have a step splitter. It'll be very visible to the folks at home watching on TV or in the stands. And the whole idea behind that is actually just trying to open up the window for a good setup for our teams. So they don't have to spend the last, hours of their life tuning the car into a 32nd of an inch. This should get the cars to where the sweet spot's pretty big.
The second big change is a radiator duct that will now exit through the hood, as opposed to the current design where the radiator duct exits through the engine specifically. Now, the main reason behind this, according to John Probst at least, which I'll show a clip from his interview here in a second, is to reduce engine temperatures. It sounds like this change specifically could be put in place to help limit costs or strain on the engines, perhaps. I'll go and play you a couple clips really quick from an interview that John Probst, who's in charge of a lot of this stuff, did on NASCAR.com. I'll go and throw a couple clips in here. I can't show the whole thing, obviously, or NASCAR will probably get mad at me.
What you'll see there is we're going to actually exit the radiator, the air going in the radiator out the hood. There's actually a lot of time spent in the wind tunnel with teams chasing grill tape. In the racing scenarios, the costs have gotten, frankly, very high. They want to run more grill tape. Today we see engine temperatures, pushing 300 degrees, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, especially in comparison to like a production car.
Now, another interesting point from that interview is the fact that he mentions that NASCAR is still in the early planning stages when it comes to the Generation 7 race car. This is something that had been leaked for a while now, had been speculated for a while now. I talked about it on the show over the last several weeks about how it sounds like from NASCAR insiders that they're a little behind on production. Remember, they set a deadline, 2021 Daytona, Gen 7 car is going to be ready. And from NASCAR insiders that we've heard from, it sounds like they were behind that schedule, and this kind of confirms it. They're still in the early planning stages. They don't really even have a full-on prototype built yet, and we're less than a year and a half away from its debut. On the plus side, it does sound like they're constantly in negotiations with the manufacturers, Ford, Chevy, and Toyota, and we've seen reports that suggest that they've also got outside manufacturers not currently involved in NASCAR looking in on these meetings, possibly thinking about entering the sport. That's all good news. That's all great, and I will say the best news is that we are starting to see NASCAR test some possible aspects. This new radiator duct exiting through the hood, this new splitter thing, both could potentially be aspects of the Gen 7 race car. So it's nice to see at least that NASCAR has made some progress to the point where we're actually starting to sort of test aspects of the future race car. But it still sounds to me like they're a little behind, and they're really kind of trying to work double time to make sure things are on schedule. Everything I've heard suggests NASCAR needs to have an actual Gen 7 car built and actually testing it on the racetrack sometime by this summer. Sometime, maybe August would still be okay, but sometime June, July, or August, NASCAR needs to have an actual Gen 7 car built, full-size car built, and out testing on a racetrack for them to stay on schedule. At least that's what I've heard people say. Who knows if that's actually true? Maybe NASCAR can do it faster, but I don't know. As I said in a video a couple weeks ago, I don't want NASCAR to rush into this. This Gen 7 race car honestly is huge for the sport. If it flops the way the car tomorrow kind of did, and the way the Gen 6 car kind of has as well, NASCAR could be in serious trouble. It doesn't have to be a perfect race car. It doesn't have to bring us back to the glory days immediately or anything, but it needs to have proper changes made for the right reasons. It needs to have things that fans want. It needs to have things that drivers want. It needs to find a happy medium there. It also has to have things that the manufacturers want. If Chevy, Ford, and Toyota want something in that car, NASCAR's probably going to have to put it there. But hopefully they don't have to sacrifice performance, and so the fans and the drivers can still be happy with what they're racing. But this Gen 7 car, needless to say, is one of the most, if not the most important race cars NASCAR has ever developed. So I don't want to see them rush into things just to meet their 2021 deadline. If they have to push it to 2022, do it. If it means the car will be better and that nothing will be rushed, do it. But we'll see. It sounds like NASCAR at least might be on top of things. But still, it sounds like a good handful of questions remain. But let me know what you guys think down below. Are you excited for the All-Star race this year? What do you think about the format this year? What do you think about the proposed changes to the race car for the All-Star race or for the Gen 7? What do you guys think about all that? It's still early for me to really develop a strong opinion, especially since we haven't seen these things in action. We don't know how they're really going to affect the racing just yet. So I'll reserve my judgment, but I want to know what you guys think, at least first impressions. Let me know down in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching this episode. Remember, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter. You can check those out down below. Also down below, you can get an Out of the Groove t-shirt and support me, support the show. I appreciate that a ton. Also, a big shout out to my amazing Patreon supporters. Michael Harrison, at You As The Stars, SelfishGifts.com, Mentally Defective, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Jason R. Long, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dennison, Mika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, Ross Corlett, TheRacingInsiders.com, and the rest of these amazing Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much for your continued support of me and the show. If you also want to support me on Patreon, you can check out that top link down below. I really appreciate it, y'all. It's the off weekend for NASCAR. I have another episode planned in a couple days. I'm going to do my quarter year awards. We're technically a quarter of the way through the Cup Series season. 9 out of 36 races are in the books. I'm going to look at who the best driver, the best teams are at this point in the season, also who maybe the biggest disappointments have been this early in the season. I'm going to go through all that and a lot more. It's kind of going to be like a early season awards show, if you will. We'll also look back at some of my preseason predictions, so we'll see how I've done there so far. It should be fun. Hopefully you guys are looking forward to it. That'll be out Sunday or Monday. But yeah, if I don't see you until then, I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Thanks for watching, and yeah, see you guys very soon.